Hello and happy birthday to me. And yes, we're sorry for late for this review. So, speaking of, what review does Kimmy and I have planned? Will it be a Christmas map? Noxious Sewers? Maybe a mystery map that's in production? I'll just open up the present. Oh boy! What is this? It's a birthday wish. Your first big challenge. Really? Fine. Just play the intro. This review has to happen. So if you never heard of this creator, then you'll be right. He's apparently only on the FE2 forums when talking about maps. He's been an FE2 veteran as he started playing FE1 in mid-2017, yet started making maps in late April of 2022, or how it appears on the forum, which are 6 maps with 1 timeline in production and 3 other maps that were made. Last one being released in October. So, with that said, let's give some maps attention with some criticisms. So, how this review will play out, it would be simple. From oldest to newest map, I'll be giving them an individual review and overall score. After would be a ranking of the maps from worst to see from the range of maps and quality. So, let's start off with Loveful Sakura, a late Valentine's map. As for positives, it looks a little better than most of the other maps we'll be seeing today. It has a cherry theme that we usually don't see often. Despite this, the rest of the map has flaws that could be fixed, such as detail quality, as it mostly has lacking use of detail, without using wedges for most of the rooms, many free models, and it feels very empty. If anything, I suggest going above and beyond with the detail by adding small details like unique rock shapes, bushes, vines, branches, or even mountains. Another thing that could help is the lighting in the lighting folder, as it can vary in color or time, so you can choose a spring season for light or a time of day. Landscaping can also help in the first and third rooms to add more detail on the ground like terrain, trees, or anything else. Finally, with wood, I suggest using a consistent color palette, as white or pink could fit well or decently into a map. Otherwise, we have the gameplay, which is very inconsistent, as of difficulty and direction. An example would be the second room. As well, yes, having some large and easy jumps, it uses small jumps that are very compact and very close, like this button. A suggestion would be to make a layout have more stuff to do rather than making it linear. Try to make it a more twisty and unexpected. An example of this is Rockin Caverns. Sure, you travel in one direction of room format, but it shows a change in direction to get a button, or travel. Sure, the map in Rockin Caverns has some gameplay flaws as jumps and clearability, but still has an interesting format. An endgame example would probably be Graveyard Cliffside. As well, the room format is linear, Many pathways for the buttons make it map memorable with twisting layouts, as well as enjoyable. Other than that, the map itself isn't too bad for a first map, as many first maps were worse in quality. However, it could be improved with a revamp in the future, or some modifications to the flaws or problems of the map. I believe Noxious Sewers was his first map? Shoot. Oh well, surely this map could be good. No. Not at all. Alright, unlike the last month map, I have no positives about this, since there's nothing that's redeeming about this map. First would be the detail. The room as of detail are very minimal and few and far between. This is apparent by only the archways being the main details with very few differences, such as the flame pipes and air tank bubble stand. And even then, they're not detailed well. Also, this map uses correlated metal, which in my own opinion is very ugly and is used very few materials and not used well and makes it lazy. Also, this room is very big and very unnecessary, with minimal detail not helping. A way to fix this is to make the room smaller, with more interesting details, such as archways, concrete troughs, pipes, wires, and trash, and just do anything to prevent minimal detail. A good example of this would be the first room of Stygian Sewers for a contrast. These details and lighting make the map look good for this room, as noomlek is using quality for that section, rather than making the room big and making it impossible to detail all of it. As of gameplay, the map has non-existent gameplay, with most of the time randomly throwing layouts for buttons, swimming section, and end part. It's very lazy, and sometimes confusing why this map has so many lazy moments. I suggest making the room smaller and using more clever gameplay by integrating the setting to use. Speaking of, this barely counts as a sewer map, as the swimming section and overhead arches are the only reference to it. Other than that, I have to say that this map is very incompetent, even more than Fallen. If I give a suggestion, I suggest revamping it from scratch or making a new sewer map concept and use these improvements. Thank you. Alright, this is the final error for this video. This map is actually made back when Noxious Sewers was being made. As for the map, this improved from the last sewer map, with the gameplay being more interesting, with the towers having more jumps, faster lava, and more variety of gameplay. Despite this positive, I still have some relative problems with this. The detail is the same problem with Noxious Sewers, being a lack of detail in a big space. As for gameplay, there are some problems with space, so there's some filler with buttons and walking. But otherwise, it's an improvement from Noxious, and I can't wait for the next few maps and see how he improved. Crap. From one map about some questionability of free models to their next map being one of the laziest and most incompetent maps ever. Most of the map has long zip lines with either no walls at all or duplicate models that is some aren't even made by him. The biggest offender being the trees. This map feels like one of my older maps before Aqua Volcano was made, where I was throwing elements together to make something. If I had to make a suggestion, please add more detail and make everything custom. That way, you could show not only the main elements with quality, but have side details like bushes, moisture, vines, trees, rockwork, caves, waterfall, and so many more that you can either research or use your knowledge and expand on. I can see this concept working for this. using South America as a reference, with detail and gameplay to play into story or concept. Speaking of, the gameplay here is almost non-existent, with mostly ziplines being the primary gameplay element, and log jumps that are just plopped down for quote-unquote gameplay. As a suggestion, the map gameplay and layout should have been more compact, so the map could be more engaging with newer scenery and sets, and isn't as long and boring. Okay. The second most recent map in itself could have been a review on its own. It was the main reason that I've chosen this. So let's do a quick review. As of detail, this isn't too bad, but still massively under-detailed and lazy. The mountain is quite detailed, but the roads, buildings, and gameplay elements feel shallow in execution. If you want to make a devastating city, I do suggest going out big with the details, since this has potential to be great. Just add lots of personality, detail, and most importantly, time. As for gameplay, the climbing section feels very generic as of the gameplay, with very basic tricks and elements that you would find in older maps. The final room is very lazy, just hugging the side of the tower with disorganized gameplay that don't even make sense for this map. For this, I do suggest knowing what your scenery is going to be and then adding the gameplay that way. That way, you can fit the gameplay well and still make it look good. Let's hope this next map will be better, or I'll get very angry. Wow, finally. I never thought I would say this, but this map is better than both Fallens in FE2. Mainly, the gameplay is the best part. Comparing the two Fallens to this, Fallen Original has bad gameplay with just buttons and small disappearing platforms. You know, a gimmick. And for the Fallen revamp, well, you already know what I'm talking about from my review. But to sum it up, it's just weird towers with gameplay that doesn't make any sense. Floating, it has increased gameplay with instant climbing, which is interesting, but still isn't anything that's great. With this, I do suggest the same complaint that I have for both Fallens, with more environment pieces to add more variety of detail, rather than a floating platform map. And that leads me to the detail section, which, like Fallen, originally has platforms and crystals, with rare exceptions like the wall jump. While this does look the cleanest out of the bunch here, there are still some problems. As I said, add more variety to detail. But another thing, I do appreciate the lighting using color correction. However, it is broad daylight, so it isn't dark and cloudy as the map is intended to be. So, for a suggestion, I do suggest turn it to afternoon or night, so you don't have to look at the sun while playing. Other than that, it's a decent map. And that's all the maps. Yay! All 6 of these maps were pain to play. Not as bad as Enzo, but it was pain. Maps are very disorganized, and I was not a fan. There were very few passable things, mainly the later maps having passable gameplay. But other than that note, let's rank these maps. Starting with Brazilian Forest at the tail end. This map is one of the worst maps I've ever played. This Brazilian Forest is so under-detailed and boring, and lazy in general. This makes my first few maps have more effort. And may I remind you, they were also garbage. This map, but if there's any map I would like to compare it to, it was Hotel Breakdown. A unique concept that wasn't executed well at all. Number 5. Noxious Sewers. A dumpster fire currently. Awful detail and gameplay. But it is better than Brazilian Forest since, there's more to it. It isn't a bad easy. It's at least has some difficulty, even though it's awful there too. Number 4, Loveful Sakura. This map is still bad, but at least it has more unique theme that's executed better, even though it's still bad with both gameplay and detail. Number 3, Overground Chaos. Still a hilarious disaster. And while yes, the best detail thing in any of these maps is a hill, it still is atrocious with bad detail and a random layout. Number 2, Death Increasement. This map does have awful detail. As bad as Noxious Sewers, but at least it has a passable layout. So there's that. Number 1, Floating. By default, this won, since the platforms look nicer than usual, and the gameplay was slightly intriguing. However, there are some still problems as other maps here, but not as bad. And after this tiring adventure, this series is finished. This series of maps feel like my older maps before I made Stygian City or Rockin Caverns, which the first 5 maps of Franscico's maps had a feeling of getting their grounding in before Floating was made and started growing as a creator. If there's anything I'd like to suggest, I'd like to say to start planning out your map designs. Have more detail rooms that you try to put much more detail and effort with either realistic or fanciful detail with more pleasing detail. And most apparently, have consistent pace in your gameplay with elements that make sense in the map or layout. And if you do want to go the extra mile, use other media in game that FE2 got inspiration to get inspiration of it. However, that video will be coming out soon. So, I hope you have a good 2023. I'll see you in the map making tutorial and cut. So, how well did I do writing? You're fired. Well, why? Because I got tired of making this video. And why did you choose these maps from the forum? Get out now. Not so fast, dear seducer. You're being unfair to community. But he wrote a bad script and made me overwhelmed. Still, say sorry and I'll sue you. Bring it on. I have a lawyer. Crap.